I was recently asked what makes the In-Sight spreadsheet so flexible and so powerful, and my response might surprise you. Now, you may or may not know we've got two different ways of programming Cognex In-Sight cameras. One is Easy Builder and one is the spreadsheet. Easy Builder is designed to, as the name suggests, be easy. It's point and click. It's very straightforward. Pick a pattern tool, pick a measurement tool, pick a counting tool, whatever you might want to do, you put it on the image, you set it up, you get your IO set up, your communications, your results, all that kind of stuff is done. And that's really there, and it competes with the vast majority of brands on the market. However, we always talk about the spreadsheet. That's where people like us reside, your integrators, the people in the know. And we always talk about it being more flexible and more powerful. But what does that really mean? Well, when asked, what do I think is the most powerful feature of the In-Sight spreadsheet? My response was copy and paste. Now that might seem a bit crazy, but let me show you what I mean. So on this application, we're looking at, these are some little bolts. And what the customer wants to do is look at what they call the grip length, this kind of shank, the wider diameter here at the top, and measure that. They don't want a full measurement, they just want to classify it. Is it, type 1, type 2, type 3, etc. Now, this is one of those applications that it sounds really, really simple. We've got some images here. If I flick through them, you can see we've got different length bolts, and the bolts move around slightly on our image. So it seems like it would be a fairly simple thing to do, but how are you going to do it? How are you going to find this point here on my image? Well, you could use a pattern tool, for instance, over here, but we've already been told by the customer that different ones have different profiles, so that's not really going to work for them. So if you're familiar with the spreadsheet, then it becomes really simple to implement. So let's set up some tools first off. If you've not come across spreadsheet before, then this is the environment. It looks a bit like Excel. We have our image up here in A0 where we can set up all our exposure time and all that kind of thing. Over here, I've got my image. Over here on the right, I've got my functions, my tool palette. And all I'm going to do is start bringing tools over and drop them into the spreadsheet. So let's go to Vision Tools, let's go to Edges, let's go to Find Line. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this tool on here and I'm going to spin it around, and all I'm trying to do is find the bottom of the plate that my bolt is sitting on. So something like that. I am going to tell it that I'm looking for a black to white edge, and I'm going to lower my score down to 10. Oh, that's not good, is it? I've already drawn it around the wrong way. That's a good start. Let's straighten that up a bit. There's me mistaking my X's and my Y's. Okay, now I've done that, I can add a bit of angle to that as well, because at the moment it's set to 0. Give that up to 10 degrees. So I'm going to find this plate as it moves up and down and as it tips left and right as well. Coming out of that tool, I've got X and Y coordinates of one end of my line and X and Y coordinates of my other end of my line. And as I go through my images, you can now see that that is accurately picking up the bottom of that plate. Great. Next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to find my bolt. I am going to come back over to my edge tools and I'm going to use Find Segment. Now what Find Segment does is it actually uses two edges. So in this case, the first edge of my bolt and the second edge of my bolt. Now I'm going to fixture this and I'm going to use the X and Y, one of those from my line, just so that it moves up and down as I find it. I'm then going to double click so that I can draw my region, and I'm going to do something like this. Now I can make this quite big. I don't have to keep it to the size of my bolt, and you can see straight away it's snapping to the edges of that bolt quite nicely. The segment color is black, and I'm looking for the widest segment, and I am just going to drop down my threshold ever so slightly. And again, I'm going to give it some angle range as well, so that when we get to that one where the bolt is sitting at an angle, What one was it? That one there. We're still finding it. Now, coming out of a segment tool, it gives me the score and it gives me a distance. What I really want though is I want the points of the lines that it's found. So I'm just going to delete these here and I'm going to copy my headings and I'm going to paste those there. So x0, y0, x1, y1, and I'm going to say get x from my edge tool, and I'm going to say 0, 0. So from my first line, so my 0 index line, give me the first point, my 0 index point. I am then going to copy that and paste it there. I'm going to change get x to get y. And then I'm going to copy both of those and I'm going to change them, instead of 0, 0, I'm going to change them to 1, 0. Or I'm going to delete the comma by mistake, 1, 0. Okay, and the same on that one, 1, 0. So now I've got 2 points and I'm then going to copy that and paste it below. And instead of 0, 0, I'm going to change that to 0, 1. 0, 1, and now this one becomes 1, 1. So this is giving me 4 points, the two ends of my two lines. So for instance, if you look down here in the image, just below the image, when I move my pointer, you can see the coordinates of it, and that number, the equals, is the current grayscale value under my pointer. So if I look at 289 by 717, I can get, where am I, 717, oh, I'm around here somewhere. Yeah, it's that point just there. And down here I've got kind of 986 by 717, 972 by 717, there you go, it's that point down there. What I'm then going to do is I'm then going to take the mean average of those points. So if I do mean, and I'm going to select that one. In fact, I'm going to go and do that up here. I'm going to do mean between that x and that x. And then I can just copy and paste that, in fact, 4 times, and that gives me a point and a point. And then to show you what I've created there, I'm going to use a plot line function. Oh, I'm going to plot this in nice yellow color. I'm going to select those 2 points and those 2 points, and then hey presto, I've got this center line. And that's the important thing. So when I go to that one, you can see that that's tipped at an angle. Now, the angle might be useful. So I'm actually going to put in a heading of angle. Let's put a heading there of X, heading of Y. And I'm going to do point to point angle. There we go. And I'm going to select this top point and this bottom point. So what that's going to do for me is it's literally just going to measure from there to there, and it's going to give me an angle. So minus, albeit minus 3 degrees. And then when I go back to these ones, you can see it's about 0 degrees. So using that X, Y, and that angle, that gives me a point that I can reference other tools from. So first of all, let's find the top of this bolt. And I'm going to use a find line tool for that. And now I can use my X, Y, and angle. And I can draw my region. Something along those lines. And I'm going to say that my polarity, I'm looking for a white to black edge. I'm looking for the best score. I could pick first edge, but I should only really ever have one. So I'm going to leave it on best score, set the threshold down at 15. Give it a bit of angle as well, just to allow for the fact that it might not be perfectly straight. And then again, when I go to my tipped image, you can see that my region has also tipped because I fixtured it to my XY angle. Okay, so this is the kind of basic stuff, as you can see, finding that. Now, I'll tell you what, let's plot that line as well. Let's mark this one in green, that's fine. Okay, so we've got our line at the top there to show us where we found the top of the bolt. Now we want to be able to find this. Now the point here is that we don't need to be super accurate, but we do need to be able to find exactly where it kind of touches, and then we can measure up, and then based on that measurement it'll either fall into sort of one of four sizes. This is where the power of copy and paste comes in. So I'm going to start with a heading of index. I'm going to end up with multiple tools, so it pays to put them into a table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do find segment again. I'm going to fixture this to my XY angle. And my region, I can draw it, or I can just use these values here. So if I wanted to, I could say, okay, my angle is going to be 90 degrees. That spins it round. In fact, let's make that minus 90. I don't know why that bothers me, but it does. So if I set that to 0, 0, for instance, you can see that the top left corner of my region is exactly on my center of or the point at the top of my center line. I'm going to leave that on 0, and my Y, let's just check it is Y that I want to move. It is, and we want to do that in the positive direction. So if we're going to make the width of our tool, say 400, then we're going to make our Y 200, something like that. And then that's pretty much set. The only other thing that I'm going to do, I'm on widest segment. I'm going to lower the match score, or the edge accept threshold for the edges that I find. I'm also going to make it so that the height of my tool is only, or let's make it 20 pixels, makes it a lot smaller. In fact, I'm going to show you a little trick in a second. I can't go any further. If I set that to 1, for instance, it defaults to 4. 4 is the minimum that I can have. But I'm going to show you a little way around that in a minute. I'm going to just make that 1 pixel wide. The angle range won't be a problem in a minute because we're only 1 pixel, so we can't have an angled line. So I've got all that set. The only thing that I need to set is my X. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to use my index, and I'm going to times that by, say, let's go for 10 pixels. That should hopefully be enough. And I'm going to OK that. Now, when I come up here, I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to put them there so I get my XY. So basically my 2 points out of my tool. The only thing I've got to do is I've got to move that to my tool, which is on B14. So let's do that, B14. Now this is where it's important to prep before we start copy and pasting so we don't get into too many problems. I'm also going to get rid of the dollar signs on this as well so that it moves that reference as I move my tool. And again, I'm going to copy that. So now I can never remember if it's going to be 0, 1 or 1, 0. This is the little trick that I was going to show you. On here, I could only set it to 4 as the minimum height. And if I look through the instruction that's here, I can see that I've got my 4 there. Well, here I can change that to 1 manually. And hey presto, now I've got 2 points. If I zoom in there, you can see that it's no longer trying to fit a line to it, it's just giving me 2 points. And let's finish off getting my Y. Now, the fact that they are identical tells me that I have got them around the wrong way. So let's change that to 1, 0 rather than 0, 1. It's one of those things, it doesn't matter how much experience you've got, you're always getting your X's and Y's around the wrong way, and your index value is wrong. Okay, so I've got my 2 points, which are the start and end of that line. Now, this is where the power comes in. On the next line, I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to do that plus 1. I'm then going to copy that. Now, if I've done my job properly, on that one, I'm now 10 pixels further down. I can now highlight that line, and I can start chucking these down the spreadsheet until, there you go, I'm nice and far down there. So I've got 68 of those tools now just by copying and pasting them. Haven't had to draw anything. It's all very simple. As long as I get the first one right and I've got that index times whatever my increment is, then it works its way down the image as I work my way down the spreadsheet. So then I'm going to come along and put a heading of distance. And I'm going to use point to point, if I spell it right anyway. Point to point, distance. If I do point to point, it's going to put a function in the spreadsheet, but I'm just going to use point to point distance. And I'm going to give it the 2 points from my tool. And then all that does is, rather than taking up valuable spreadsheet space, it just gives me the actual distance. I'm then going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that down next to all of these tools as well. Now, as you can see, we start off at around the 300 mark for distances, 291, 288, etc., etc., and then we end up at the 254. And if I start looking at these, you can see these are on the thinner diameter. And then we've got these ones where they gradually work their way down to it. You'll also notice that these bottom ones that are hanging off the bottom of my bolt, so they're not actually finding an edge. It's still finding me edge, and it's still giving me a distance. Now, the reason it's doing that is, in fact, let's do it on the bottom one so you can see it live. If I open up the edges tool again, I've got this tick box selected, which is normalized score. So if I look at my chart, you can see this is what it's seeing. And it looks like what we're looking at is black and white, black and white, black and white, black and white, but it's not. It's just the fact that the background is slightly mottled. If I turn off normalized score and I leave my threshold set at 15, then I'm now not finding a point. And we just need to check that that still works fine on the ones where, oh, there you go, that one's not happy. Let's just lower that score. This is another reason why what I typically do is I typically set up a setting that all of the tools reference, save me copying and pasting it quite so many times. Okay, now we've done that, we're picking up these edges nicely as it works its way down. When we get to the bottom of the bolt and we're off the bolt, we get these errors, which is completely expected. We get those quite a bit in the spreadsheet. If you say, right, give me the coordinates of the 10th pattern you've found, but it's only found 6, it can't, so it gives you an error instead. We expect them and we just deal with them. So now I've got all of these distances, we can start to see these values we talked about, and it drops down and my distances are errors there. So down here, I'm going to put average as a heading. and I'm going to use mean. Give me the mean average of error-free. That means it's going to ignore these error values, and I'm going to give it this column of numbers to work with. Oh, just got to close that brackets. Okay, so it's given me 262. I'm then going to put a column called shank. And I'm going to declare that G14 is greater than our average down the bottom. That average I've put in $signs so that when I copy and paste it, it doesn't move that reference. If that's true, then A, we know it's the shank, so it gives us a 1. If it's not true, it gives us a 0. Again, paste that next to all of my other tools. Now, all of these ones at the top are all 1s. That's the last one. That's the first 0 after that. So I think it's the first 0 that I'm interested. So I'm just going to call this point. And that one's definitely going to be a 0. I'm going to say that value before is equal to 1. And the value to my left is equal to 0. And what that's going to do for me is it's just going to give me a 1 in the column for the first. As you can see, that one there is the first one that it's found. Let's bold these headings just to tidy it up a little bit, center them up. Let's scroll down through these. We don't need 3 decimal places to just say 0 or 1. So let's get rid of those and center them as well. So it just looks a little bit nicer. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, give me the max index of error-free again. And I'm going to highlight this column of numbers. Now, what this is going to do for me, oh, got to put the, because it's error-free, I need to put the closed brackets in. It's then going to give me a number. The number is 14. If I go up to number 14 here, it's that one there, which is the one with the number 1 in it. I can then, let's get some headings from up here. I'm going to copy those and paste it, and I'm going to do choose. Based on that value there from these values here. So what that's doing is it's just picking down that value, and I can copy and paste it, and it's giving me the one above, so all my X's and Y's. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot a line, and I can pick the coordinates for that off my spreadsheet like that. And then in honor of Logan's jumper, if you know, you know, then I'm going to select this aqua color to plot that. And I'm going to click OK. So I've now found that. Let's see if that holds true when we go to our different images. There we go. We got the short ones, we got the longer ones. That's working nicely. And then all I need to do is I can get a point from that. So let's have mean, let's have a heading of X and a heading of Y. And I'm going to get the mean average of my 2 X points and the mean average of my 2 Y points. And then that is the center of that blue line. I am then going to do point to line. And the point I'm going to use is the one I've just created. And the line I'm going to use is the one that I found right up the top there, which hopefully is that one. and then I can find that and I can get a distance out of that. So I've got all of this information here, but it's that distance that I'm really interested in. And we can see if I highlight that and I move, that's still measuring up to there. And then it's just a simple bit of data manipulation to say, okay, well, if the distance is between this value and this value, then it's type 1. If it's between this and this, it's type 2. And there you have it. No fancy, big, flashy tools. We're just looking at simple edge tools here. We've not used a pattern. We've not used a blob. Simple edge tools and the power of copy and paste.